Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, May 12th. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We've got a lot to discuss in the NFL. Getting closer and closer to OTA starting. We've got rookie mini camps in full swing, both last week and then again this week. Shortly after that, you have training camp. The weather's getting warmer, although if you're in the tri-state area like I am, this has been a pretty bad week of weather. We've had rain probably 4 of these 7 days this week, so hasn't been a great week weather-wise, but the weather is warm. Just rain is falling, so that's not ideal. But either way, we're here talking NFL. DiMari, another week. A lot of news to talk about. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Kind of on that weather. Florida, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hot, too hot. We're talking about
Yeah.
96, 97 every day and thunderstorms. So I think I'm not too happy about that. I'd rather be where you're at. But yeah, football is kind of, we never got rid of it, but football is back. Really excited for these rookie mini camps. Kind of seeing some good clips, some bad clips. JJ
Yeah.
McCarthy slander there, kind of. So, I'm excited to get into the show.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though it's only rookie mini camps and it's basically guys with just, helmets on and shorts, it's still football. Football is still coming back, just seeing guys out there on the field. Of course, for all 32 NFL teams, just seeing, your new draft picks out there on the field is always exciting, whether it's good or bad. It's always funny to see if the receivers are dropping balls, quarterbacks are making questionable throws. JJ McCarthy season in Minnesota. So, we got a lot to discuss, but we'll start today actually in college football instead of the NFL. We'll get to a ton of NFL topics a little bit later on. Even Austin Rivers making a very questionable comment, which I don't think he would survive one down in the NFL. I think I have a better chance of surviving in the NFL than he does, but we'll discuss that a little bit later on. But we'll start here in college football because this week, the, I guess, hyped up, exciting cover has been revealed for the new College Football 25 video game. This is the cover here up on the screen. I tried to find the bigger version, but this is really, I guess, the actual one that'll come out as opposed to the wider version. But as you could see, some of the faces of college football right there in the front. Donovan Edwards of Michigan, of course, Travis Hunter of Colorado, who is obviously a beast, can do just about anything. And then Quinn Ewers there to the left out of Texas. So those three headline the covers. He's also got Carson Beck, Jalen Milrow from Alabama. So you got a couple different guys there towards the front. But this is exciting for college football fans. It's exciting for video game fans because you get a first look at the new cover here. What was your first reaction to this long awaited?
I just felt like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for this game to come out. I think I was in middle school, like last time I had an NCAA, and it was just nothing better than Friday night.
Yeah.
Going towards the weekend, you call your friends up, you play Road to Glory like all day, go through high school, go to your favorite college, adjust the schedule how you want. So I cannot wait. To the point I've already requested July 12th off from work,
Yeah.
so I won't be working. I don't know what day that falls on, but if it's a weekday, I just won't be working whatsoever. So I'm so excited. Glad to see the athletes getting the recognition, getting their name on the back of their jerseys, and you can play as the athletes, which is fun. I got
Yeah.
tired of using Florida and using QB number 15. Like we all knew
Yeah.
who it was. But now you can put a name on it. So it's exciting. I can't wait for that game to come out.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool to see. Just again, as you can see here, the names on the back of the jersey. Now, these are obviously the real pictures of these guys, but seeing the names on the back of these guys' jerseys will be awesome. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I remember playing the old video game as well. We might Marvin Harrison Jr. might be like wide receiver whatever this year if he doesn't sign his deal with whatever the
18.
NFLPA. So that wide receiver number 11 I guess will might live on, but yeah, quarterback number 15, quarterback number whatever. It's finally nice to see that not be the case. And of course the graphics, what you can do in the game will be so much better than what it's been a decade I guess since the last time.
Yes.
So it's gonna be awesome. And just for video games and fans in general, because you now got Madden, you've got college football, so you've got all football fronts covered, and of course all the other sports games. So yeah, an exciting time for video games, college football fans. What's going to be the first? What do you think? First thing you do in that game? What is it going to be? Put plays. What's the plan there for the
I'm
first
going
log right into it? First thing we do.
I'm going right to Road to Glory. I feel
Road to
like that
glory.
is the only right answer.
Yeah.
Only right
Yeah, I
answer.
agree.
I'm taking Coastal Carolina, and we are going to become a great program.
Yeah.
Well, a greater program. They're already a good program. We're going to
Yeah.
do some things at Coastal Carolina.
Coast. Gotta love Coastal Carolina. Road to glory. Yeah, I'll probably go to Road to Glory as well. What is your like go to in Madden? First thing you do, franchise? Are you an Ultimate Team guy? Career?
Honestly, I have not played Madden
Madden.
since probably 21. Was it 21? It might have been a while. I kind of got tired of the point of people taking their linebackers near the D line and running them 50 yards downfield to pick off a pass. The good old user lurk. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, the people I play with, they're like, "Oh, user lurk." Like, yeah, I'm never gonna ever see a linebacker run 30 yards downfield in the NFL and pick
never.
off a
I
faggot.
I got tired of it. That and I had an instance once Madden before where Julian Edelman ran over Cam Chancellor. I was playing online, and
Mm,
I was done. I was fed up. But if I was to play Madden, first thing I'm doing is making a playbook. I know that sounds crazy, but I like my own custom playbook. So I'm taking plays from. I know definitely Arizona for a while. Philly there. So some different teams. I'm gonna use some things. I'm really big on RPOs and quick games. So definitely got to make a playbook.
yeah, yeah, I agree. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting again. Here it is. That in itself should just get you excited. Players walking in. Got all the other team flags out there. Nebraska looks like Kansas State, Michigan, Ohio State. It might be
I see
Iowa all
some
the way in the
Iowa.
back.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
Iowa in the back. Notre
There's
Dame,
another
I
one
think
like
we're looking at.
next to Nebraska. I think that might be Notre Dame, maybe. So
Notre Dame.
yeah, so a lot of excitement. Um, it also should get you excited too for the college football season, which should be another fun one as well. So video games, good time to be long awaited. This has been something that's been requested for a while. And now, obviously, with the NIL, the way college football is these days, we'll get an even better version of what it was a couple years ago. So that's the opening there. A little college football action, college football 25 cover. Now we can move on to some wide receiver news in the NFL. It feels like over the last couple weeks, we just continue to get wide receiver news. You had, OBJ going to Miami, Chase Claypool, of course, going to Buffalo, Amon-Ra St. Brown getting an extension. You hear the reports in San Francisco that Ayuk and Debo will both remain there. And then this week, we also got some more news. Tyler Boyd and Allen Robinson found new homes. We'll start with Boyd because that's the bigger one. He heads to Tennessee on a 1-year deal worth up to $4.5 million. I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised Tyler Boyd was still on the market in May. This was a guy that I thought would get taken through the first couple days, potentially of free agency. This was a guy that I really liked. Just from a Jet fan perspective, I thought the Jets could have potentially got him. I'm very happy with Mike Williams, but I still thought they could have got him as even uh, as a kind of like a fourth receiver behind Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Malachi Corley. But he goes to Tennessee on a very cheap contract. I like this move a lot for the Tennessee Titans. What are your thoughts on this one?
I agree that just not finding a home is very odd because he showed, in Cincy that he can be a very reliable wide receiver three. And even if you need him to be a wide receiver two, he's also capable of that. But this might sound a little crazy, but is the AFC South kind of probably the best when it comes roster wise? Because now you're talking about Boyd with Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Pollard free agency. Now it's just what can Will Levis do? But just kind of looking at the rosters, you still got Houston over there. Jacksonville made some moves. The AFC South might be one of those divisions that we kind of watched this year where, two or three teams are maybe getting in the playoffs, or it's going to come down to the wire like last year, where last game of the season, week 18, fighting to the death for a playoff spot. But I think Tennessee has gotten better. Now it's just what will Will Levis do?
Yeah, I agree. Levis obviously last year showed some positives, finished the year with 1,800 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. Had a couple good games mixed in there. Had that great game against Atlanta where he threw for 4 touchdowns and over like 230 yards. He also had that one game against Jacksonville where they lost, but he had like 2 touchdowns, I think, no picks. So he had a couple good games mixed in. Their receiving core is kind of sneaky good. I know I mentioned this probably about a month ago or whatever it was, whenever Calvin Ridley signed. I thought they gave him a lot of money. I think I I might have put him and Kenny Galladay's contract in the same sentence, which isn't probably very good company to be in, but it's not so much a knock on Ridley. I just thought it was a lot of money. I thought they probably could have got him potentially for cheaper, but still, he's a very talented receiver. And Ridley last year, I thought kind of got a little bit too much hate. I mean, this was a guy that came off of an suspension. Was the first time he played in over a year. And even that in 2021, he only played 5 games. So he really missed 2 years of football. He came back and had over 1,000 receiving yards in 70 plus receptions, which was the second most he ever had in a season. So I thought Ridley last year was productive. If he does that again and you get solid production out of DeAndre Hopkins, although he's not the same player he once was, he's still serviceable. And then, of course, Tyler Boyd, who has had a very solid career. Like, he's a guy, good veteran in the locker room, reliable slot receiver. He's going to play. He's not going to miss much time. I mean, just look at his game logs the last couple years, 16, 15, 16, 16, 17. He doesn't have much of an injury history. He's reliable. He's going to be out there, especially for a young quarterback. Not going to suffer much drops. Going to do what he needs to do. Not flashy, but exactly what you need in a slot receiver. And I mean, he was Cincinnati Bengal wise, he was up there in his career as one of the more solid receivers in Bengals history. And that's saying something because they've had some really good receivers that have gone through that organization. So Boyd, I'll ask you this too. Like, do you feel Boyd has kind of flown under the radar in his career? Because you even go back to earlier in his career, he had a stretch in 2018, 2019 where he had back-to-back 1,000-yard campaigns. Like, this is a guy that has put together a really nice career and I feel like might be a little bit under the radar. Of course, he was always kind of number 2. Like, when he had AJ Green there for a little bit in the beginning of his career. Then he was kind of behind Jamar Chase. So it's like he's never really been relied on that much as the number 1, but he's shown he can be. What are your thoughts on kind of, I guess, his career as a whole?
Yeah, and I think it's because it's exactly what you said. He's not flashy. So, he's not making the great highlight plays and the great catches and those type of things. I don't know. In a weird way, this makes sense in my mind, but I kind of just feel like his play style is like the Kawhi Leonard of the NFL. It's just like, I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going to do too little. I'm going to come out there and perform, and that's great. I'm going to go home. And that's kind of his thing, and that's exactly what a young quarterback needs, like you just said, someone who's consistent. And like I just said not too long ago, where he is viewed or has been viewed as a wide receiver 3, like when T. Higgins got there, but is more than capable of being a wide receiver 2. And he's just under the radar for whatever reason, probably the names that he's played under. But I think he's going to be a great fit for Tennessee, a great security blanket for Will Levis, and take some pressure off DeAndre Hopkins because they had basically nobody over there with them last year. So now you get 2 guys that require a lot of respect from defensive coordinators. So I think it's a great fit all around from the weapons to the quarterback. So hopefully they can just all gel and maybe even win a division.
Yeah,
It's
it'll be
bold,
interesting.
but
So, yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was it's bold, but I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's going to happen. I'm not.
yeah.
I still like Houston, but element of surprise.
Let's.
How we were saying, you kind of never know in the NFL, so they could
Oh.
be that anything can happen type of team this year.
Yeah, so we'll talk about over unders for rookie quarterbacks here in a little bit, but since we're on the topic, their over under is set at 6.5. So it's low. According to here on ESPN. Now, I believe this was made well before they signed Boyd. I mean, what do we think? You think 9 maybe? I think the biggest question to me in Tennessee is still Will Levis because they've got the weapons, they've got the pieces. You also mentioned too Tony Pollard, who kind of flies under the radar of this whole conversation because of course it's all about the receivers right now, but they added him as well. My thing is like this team had 6 wins last year. There's no way they're worse than that, right? Like they
Not at
got
all.
better this offseason. There's no way I think they're at least probably 8-win team, 7, 8. At best, I still think Houston's miles better than them, but I don't think it's crazy to say they could surpass Jacksonville.
Yeah, I agree. So I just want to, again, let me just go back real quick. I'm not saying that they're going to win a division when I said that. I said their hope is to win the division.
Yeah.
But 100% agree. I like Houston. I think definitely Houston's top dog in that division. It is not crazy to think Tennessee will have a better year than Jacksonville,
Nope.
just because
Definitely.
we've talked about Trevor Lawrence and we're not really going to get into it. But with what they got over there, I'm talking about Tennessee still. I think they could be better than the Jags.
Yeah. Especially the way Jacksonville flopped last year. Like, I know Doug Peterson's a very good coach and well respected, won a Super Bowl. We all know that. Winning a Super Bowl with Nick Foles has got to be one of the hardest things to do in life. I mean, let's just be honest here. He was able to do that. But when you look at Jacksonville, you can make the case out of all the divisions or out of all the teams in this division. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Colts, the Colts, obviously, they added a Donnie Mitchell. They brought back Pittman. They're kind of rolling with what they got. They haven't made too many major moves, but Jacksonville hasn't done a whole lot as opposed to Tennessee, obviously adding Boyd and Ridley, Pollard as well. And then, of course, you've also got Houston, who arguably won the offseason when they struck a trade for Stephon Diggs. So, yeah, if I had to guess right now, I would probably say it's tough because then you throw the Colts into it as well, who could easily be a second place team. Back to our point we mentioned a couple weeks ago, it's not crazy to envision the Jacksonville Jaguars being last.
And I mean, for the Colts, again, how I just kind of said, them and Houston were fighting for a spot
Yeah.
last game of the season to get into the playoffs. If Jonathan Taylor's in that ball game and he catches that ball, they are.
Yeah. They're in the
That probably
playoffs.
got confusing. That probably got a little confusing. If Jonathan Taylor was in the game at that moment, because I can't remember, it was the backup running back who was in that
Yep.
game during that play. If Taylor was in the game and that play design happened and he catches that ball, they are in the playoffs. And this whole Houston, thing never even happens. So I don't think it's crazy. We're talking about the Colts maybe being 2 or 3, Tennessee being 2 or 3, and then Jacksonville being
Yep.
4. It honestly won't surprise me. I honestly don't think they're that good, and they've been flopping. So I don't think that's a crazy statement.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously, we get it. They lost, of course, Derrick Henry, the Titans did, but like we mentioned, they were able to replace him with Pollard, who he's not Derrick Henry, but he's very solid and more than capable of going over 1,000 rushing yards. And they also had receivers too, because I think they're going to expect maybe a little bit more of a pass heavy offense. So an under radar, good, solid offseason for the Titans. Now, of course, they do have a new head coach. Mike Vrabel's out, so we'll have to see what Brian Callahan does. And there's always going to be questions behind a new head coach, but they've got some talent. I think that's all you can ask for. And the AFC South is interesting. Could be one of the more fun divisions to watch this year. So we'll move on here to another receiver, a little bit of a smaller name, kind of a guy that I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you the last time I said his name, Allen Robinson. It feels like he's been disappeared forever, but 2 weeks and we get Chase Claypool and Allen Robinson finding new homes. So that's interesting. Two receivers that are not what they once were. But Allen Robinson goes to the New York Giants. So they build a little bit more depth there at receiver after taking Malik Neighbors 6th overall in this draft. An interesting move here, and kind of, again, a 1-year cheap deal for him. This is a guy that's not what he was in some of his days in Jacksonville and in even the 2 years he had where he had over 1,000 yards in Chicago. Has spent each of the last 2 seasons with the Rams and the Steelers. Didn't do a whole lot last year with the Steelers. Thoughts on this move here as he goes to the Big Apple and joins the Giants?
Not much to say. I mean, doesn't move the needle. Hasn't really been that productive when he's been on the field. So I mean, now you throw Daniel Jones in the mix of another, I guess, body for them to throw out there on the field. I don't know what the Giants are doing, but all I can say is it looks like 2 guaranteed wins for Dallas at least this year. With every time the Giants step on the field, because this has been outside of drafting neighbors. I think this has been a terrible offseason, and that just made it worse.
Yeah, it's been interesting. The biggest I like a little bit of what they done, like the Brian Burns. I like the trade, but I thought they gave him they gave him so much money. I don't know if he's worth all of that money they gave him. To me, it always just circles back to the quarterback. That's my I don't trust Daniel Jones. So it's like we can add all these receivers, we can add Malik Neighbors. I a little feel bad for a little bit for Malik Neighbors because I also feel bad too because the New York media has caught him in the most unfortunate situations. Like there's been some facial expressions that he has made that people have taken pictures of and it's blown up in this area. And it's like the face you make when you realize you're going to be running cardio with Daniel Jones as your quarterback. It's like, I already feel bad. He's already getting a taste of the New York media here. And I feel bad because he's an amazing receiver, an amazing talent, one of the best players in this draft. But like, I'm so excited to see what he does, but I'm worried he's just going to be running cardio. Well, I'm worried because Daniel Jones, I don't trust him.
I don't know if you seen the meme, but so apparently he had a bet with Jaden Daniels for
Yeah,
offensive rookie of the year, and he called it off,
yeah,
and someone said, and this is after one practice with Daniel
yeah,
Jones. So
yeah. All he had to do was just meet Daniel Jones, and he called off the bet. Oh man, gotta love running cardio.
oh,
The New York
whew,
Giants. Speaking
uh,
of the over/under win totals, they're at 6.5 for this year. Over or under? Under.
definitely. I think I'm going to say under. They'll probably be borderline right at 6,
Yeah,
but if I'm thinking under.
yeah. It's like I don't know. And then they've obviously Darren Waller might retire as well. Now they did add Theo Johnson in the draft, but Devin Singletary at running back too. They brought him in to replace Barkley. I like Singletary. I think he's solid, but I don't know so much about a number one. He's more of I feel like a number. I mean, he was kind of the number one really last year, and
So he did
uh,
have a,
Houston.
he had a successful start in
Yep.
Buffalo. Last year with Houston, he looked pretty decent when Damian Pierce wasn't there. I think he's capable, but with kind of the way that offensive line is structured and the lack of weapons around him, I don't think he's going to have that great of a year.
Yeah, it feels like more of the attention might be on him, but then again, I mean, he had 898 yards last year. If he gives you that for the Giants, I think you would be thrilled because he does that and much cheaper than Saquon. I'm very intrigued to see just now that we're on the topic of the Giants. I'm very intrigued to see those Eagles Giants matchups this year between them and Saquon. See if any tempers flare at all because I think they lost a lot of respect between the two Giants fans at least. When Saquon returns to MetLife, that place is going to be loud. Depends on when it happens, though. If it happens like last week of the season when the Giants are already eliminated, it might not be as loud. But if it happens earlier in the year, there's going to be some I guess I don't know,
Yeah.
bad blood between the two.
Bad blood.
Yeah,
It's not even going to look right to see Saquon in that
no,
winged helmet, eagle helmet, whatever you want to call it.
not at all.
But
I mean, he was already getting booed at Philly when they went to the Knicks game in his own
exactly.
building too.
So
That's his own city.
it's going to be something else. That I can't wait for that matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely one to circle. And the NFL schedule actually come out next week, so that should be exciting. Now, got some of the receiver news out of the way, so now we could move on here to over/under win totals for teams with rookie starting quarterbacks. So we'll start here, kind of go in order, I guess, of when they were drafted. We'll start with the Chicago Bears. According to ESPN, right now, the Bears over/under with Caleb Williams is set at 8.5. I guess we'll start with you. We can rotate. You give your answer, then I'll give mine. 8.5 for the Bears, over or under with Caleb Williams at the helm.
I'm going over. The Bears will win 10 games this year and be the 6th seed in the playoffs.
I agree. I'm going to go over as well. I'm going to go over 8.5. I'll give them 10. I put 10 as well, so I'll take the Bears there. Williams is probably going into the best situation out of all these quarterbacks. He's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. They added DeAndre Swift. You look at Washington, it's like they've got some pieces, but it still feels like that's like the 2018 All-Pro team that they're
Yeah.
working with over there. Guys that are a little older. New England, of course, with Drake May, I like what they've done, but they still got a lot of work to do. Caleb Williams, there's proven veterans around him, guys that have been around. So I'll just say there, I'll say 10 as well, and over 8.5. Now we'll move on here to Washington. The over under right now is set at 6.5. Over or under?
I'm going to say over. I think 7 is a great number for them. I really like kind of everything they've done. Like you said, a little older team, but proven vets. Obviously, you know how I feel about Dan Quinn. Love hate type of thing. So I think he'll go over there and make something special out of Washington, at least in year one. I think I'm going to stick with 7.
7.
Yeah.
It's interesting for me because I have him in that range as well. I wrote down like 6. They had 4 last year. I could see them being 2 better than what they were. I like what I like what they've done. Like as much as we could joke about, bringing in some older guys. I do like what they've done. Eckler obviously coming in. Hopefully he has a better year. Of course, we know what Terry McLaurin brings. Zach Ertz, they also brought him in. They've already had, Jahan Dotson, who's been there. They added Luke McCaffrey as well through the draft in the 3rd round. So they do have a mix of some young talent, some guys that are in their prime, and also some guys that are older, which I think will bode well for Daniels. But in my eyes, I just look at, say, like, I don't know, I'm very interested to see kind of how Daniels transfers to the NFL because he needs the biggest thing I think that Daniels needs to do in year number 1 is like just protect himself. And I'm still a
Yeah.
little bit worried that
100%.
there's going to be those stretches of games where either they fall down early and he kind of just gets reckless. And it could cost him a couple games, but like he's a stud when he's on. The biggest thing though is just protecting himself. Like, I guess what are your expectations too, kind of on Daniels? Like, you feel that's his biggest if he's on his game, he can kind of give you Lamar Jackson like vibes, which would be amazing for him and Washington as well. And the Commanders, look, they deserve a quarterback that can sling it. They deserve a quarterback that can help the franchise after everything that organization has gone through over the last couple of years, really over the last decade. Snyder took that organization and drove it right into the ground. They finally got an owner that cares. They finally have an owner that wants to win, a front office that knows what they're doing, a head coach that he's going to get respect in the locker room. Obviously know well from his days in Dallas. What are your expectations, I guess, for Daniels with this system and with this team?
I agree. Just to start with, he needs to protect his body. We kind of seen some things at LSU that were like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't put your body at risk like that." And we're talking about a whole different league. So I think 1 is to protect himself, and 2 is kind of just let the game come to him. So I kind of feel like that goes hand in hand with protecting himself because, like you just said, he'll get in some situations where he tries to do too much, and next thing you know, he's jumping over defenders, kind of sacrificing his body. So as long as he can just let the game flow to him, don't press, don't try to do too much, I think he will be okay and he will eventually get the grasp of it. One thing that kind of does concern me though is like you go from throwing to Brandon Ayuk at Arizona State, and then
Yeah.
you're throwing to Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. So you've always had weapons around you that were successful. Kind of looking at Washington outside of McLaurin, you're just like, who's that guy that's really going to step up and help you elevate as well if McLaurin is having a bad game or anything like that. So I think my main concern really for him is, besides protecting himself, is just don't do too much. Let the game come to you, and hopefully find somebody outside of McLaurin that you can trust and that can just help elevate your game.
Yeah, it's a good point because I mean I'm glad you brought that up because when you think about it, I mean I mean to go from Ayuk to Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. is nuts. And now you have to go to I mean it's like McLaurin's solid. It's not the worst. I mean, Buffalo, I don't know. Buffalo, I guess, might be what's the worst receiving? I don't think they have the worst receiving core in football, but they're up there. Buffalo's just been the apologize to the Bills fans. We've been kind of all over Buffalo all offseason, and rightfully so. They've kind of give us a reason to.
Don't
But
apologize for anything.
yeah,
Stand on business, what you believe. Uh, I don't think Washington has the worst. They are on that bottom tier of wide receiver
yeah.
course, but Buffalo might be the worst. I think I agree with that. They're probably. I can't really think of one off the top of my head that just instantly is a worse group.
I
Maybe
wish
the
I had.
Saints. I mean, outside of
Yes.
Olave, they kind of got nobody else. The
Saints are up
Chargers.
there. Yeah, Chargers might be the worst.
Well, they're unproven, so they got it. But
Yeah,
as of now, yeah,
Saints are pretty. Yeah, Saints are bad too. Yeah, they're.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, like Washington's miles better than New Orleans because
100%.
I would even say I don't know. I mean, McLaurin and Olave is probably pretty close. You might have to give it to Olave last year, but other than that, like the number 2 and 3 for the Saints is, I mean, really nobody. And they're gonna rely on Cedric Wilson to be their third receiver. That's it's not great.
Well, I had my experience with Cedric Wilson. He's
Yeah.
either going to have some great games, or he's just not going to even show up for work.
Nope. That there's a couple of them out there. They're getting paid millions, so wish I could be in his position. Um, so we move on now to the Patriots. Drake May, of course, over under is set at 4.5. Over or under 4.5 for New England? What are we thinking?
17 games. It's kind of hard to say under on these type of situations, but
Yeah.
their weapons are up there with the worst of the NFL. So I'm going to go. Surprisingly, I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over. I think they get 5 or 6 wins.
Yeah, I'll go over as well. I put them at 5. They were at 4 last year. I don't see how they're not at least one game better than they were this year. So I'll go 5. Yeah, you mentioned it. Receiving core wise, they added Jalen Polk, who I really like. They added Javon Baker, who we both really like. And I guess he also mentioned what people in wheelchairs, he makes them stand up. So
Make them
those
stand
people
up.
may soon like him as well. But those are also two rookie receivers that were drafted not in the first round. So two guys that still have to learn, two guys that are still gonna have to develop. Can't always rely on two rookie receivers in year one to take over your wide receiver room. So yeah, there's still some stuff there. And of course, still Drake May. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see kind of how New England handles it with Jacoby Brissett and May. It feels like it might be more of a competition than many expect. Doesn't really seem like they're just gonna hand May the job. Um, Unlike Washington and Chicago, just giving it to Caleb Williams and Jalen Daniels, and Caleb Williams rightfully so. He's not going to sit, but yeah, I'll say 5. They can't be any worse than last year. Last year they were pathetic on so many levels last season. They got a little bit better in some areas, but you hope that guys like Christian Gonzalez can continue to develop. They've got 2 solid safeties that you hope that they can continue to develop in terms of Kyle Duggar, who's entering his 5th season. So he's kind of entering the prime of his career. I'll go over as well. I'll say 5, but not much more than that, especially in that division. I mean, they're probably going to get swept when it comes to the division, right? Maybe they win one game. They stole a game against Buffalo last year. They of course beat the Jets, which that's not a surprise. They did that for pretty much a decade straight, almost, of beating us. They might steal a game in the division, but it's probably about it. And of course, first year head coach as well in Gerard Mayo. So that'll be interesting. Moving on now. Denver Broncos, Bo Nix. Although I guess we could go Vikings if we want to go in order, but we'll go Broncos, Bo Nix. Over under set at 5.5. Thoughts on this one? Want me to go with mine first? Under. Under by a mile. Now, if Zach Wilson was the quarterback, we'd hammer the over. but I don't think he's going to be the quarterback there. I don't think he's going to start. If he was to start, you hammer the over. But I'm sorry. Even though they got rid of Ben DiNucci, your backup quarterbacks being Jared Stidham and Zach Wilson, I cannot take you seriously. I can't. Even though Bo Nix is the starter, they're one Bo Nix injury or one Bo Nix bad game away from rolling Zach Wilson or Jared Stidham out there in a crucial week 4 matchup against the Chiefs. Under. I'll give them 4 wins.
I'm going to agree and say under. They're going to need to wrap Bo Nix up in bubble wrap everywhere he goes, or the little balls that you kind of like you put around the people and like they can run with them on. And they need to put him in one of those. Just protect him by all costs. Because if he's like you just said, one Bo Nix injury, they're screwed.
I mean, we might see Zach Wilson a receiver because let's be honest here. Who's Bo Nix going to throw to? Outside of Cortland Sutton, he's got what? Marvin Mims Jr., Josh Reynolds is all right, but that's got to be up there with some of the poor receiving cores.
It's up there.
Do we see Zach Wilson at all this year?
We do. Unfortunately, we do. Maybe if they are going down to Miami again and it's 70-14 in the fourth quarter, we'll see some Zach Wilson.
Bring him in. Oh,
that's a bad team.
Zach Wilson. You know what? Like Denver, Zach Wilson should when Zach Wilson's out there, they should just not even televise the games. Don't even worry about televising the games. Waste.
I'm convinced. I am so convinced that the Nuggets had to sacrifice the Broncos and the Rockies in order to find their success.
Yeah.
It has to be that. I mean, both of them are very hard to watch. So that's the only answer. That's like the only thing it could be. You can't have 4 successful sports teams. 2 of them had to kind of just, take the short end of the stick, and it was the Broncos and the Rockies for the Nuggets to be good. And that is why they will have 4 wins this year.
Yeah, it feels like that's almost similar to New York, too, because you got the Knicks and the Rangers right now that are cruising. It feels like they had to sacrifice the Giants from having another good year, and they had to sacrifice Aaron Rodgers' Achilles in order for those teams to be good. And now here we are, and they're good.
And if I'm correct, Rangers are up 3-0 right now, right?
3-1. Unfortunately, they lost last night.
They played last night and lost. Yeah. All right.
Hopefully win it on Monday and move on.
If it comes down to Aaron Rodgers need to give up an Achilles or 2 for a title, you might got to consider it. That or the Knicks, you might got to consider it.
I will. You know what's funny is yesterday I was watching. I do this to myself occasionally. I don't know why. Like there's times where you just like, how you scroll through YouTube and you come upon like random highlights or whatever, and it's like, okay, let me watch this. Like yesterday I was scrolling through YouTube, and I saw Xavier Gibson's game-winning touchdown pop up. So I'll press on. I'm gonna watch it, and I'm watching it. And like now, like when that first happened, of course, I was in the building that night. It was unbelievable. One of the greatest sporting event I've ever been to in terms of atmosphere, like the game itself. By far the best Jet game I've ever been to. I've tried to go to at least 1 or 2 Jet games every year. Usually there's nobody in that stadium by halftime. I was there for the Mike White debacle when he threw 4 interceptions, the wrong Mike White game. Of course, that's the game I choose to go to. But either way, that was unbelievable. But now, like, all I do is I watch that highlight and I just get upset now. Like, there's not even happiness anymore. It's like, and then I went on and I searched like Jets versus Bills 2023 intro. You know how they do it on ESPN?
Oh, yeah.
And it was like Aaron Rodgers running out of the tunnel. The intro, like the promo video, it just got me so depressed. I'm like, I will still never get over that until he plays the full season. Still not recovered. Still won't recover. I won't recover until he plays the full season.
I feel like that Bills game was one of those like, yes, we've won, but at what cost? Because
we won the battle, lost the war. Oh,
that was bad.
Very bad.
that was rough. I mean,
I saw
I
seeing
just
Zach Wilson run down there to mob Xavier Gipson. I'm
okay.
like, oh no.
Actually, here's a question that I just been meaning to ask. So I'm obviously watching the game on TV, and then kind of you can at least the commentators were like, you can hear a pin drop in this stadium when Rodgers went down.
Yeah.
And then you also heard Zach Wilson boos during that game. Like it was just that loud. How true were those reports of just the
Yeah.
quietness for the injury and then the boos that were? I was hoping it was out of like, is that crowd noise they're just pumping to like the speakers, or was that real boos raining from the fans? So I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's interesting kind of just how the night went because when he first went down, yeah, you could hear a pin drop. The stadium was dead. I'll be honest with you, when he first went down, like he got sacked, he got, again, he threw it away, got taken down. And at first it was like, okay, it didn't seem like much because he was just down and then he got up. And like wasn't thinking much of it. But once you saw him go down again, like he was a little slow to get up in the first place. And then once you saw him go down again, you're like, yeah, this isn't good because he probably went down, had no feeling in his foot, his Achilles, or whatever however you feel after you tear your Achilles. Because I think they say like what? It's like you're walking. I forget the term they used when they describe when you have a torn Achilles when you try and walk on it. But then he got right back down. And that's when I was like, yeah, it's done. It's done. And then you kind of try and buy yourself into it, like, oh, maybe it's just an ankle injury, and we only have to watch 3 weeks of Zach Wilson as opposed to 16, 17 more weeks of Zach Wilson. And yeah, and then, the defense started to get some stops. There were some frustrating fans because, there probably were some boos. I don't exactly remember how many boos there were, but the people I was sitting in, there was a couple. Zach sucks, like a couple of those people, because the offense wasn't moving. They weren't moving until really until the second half, because I think it was 10-3 at halftime.
Yeah.
Where and it was again that same feeling of they were down 10 or 13-3 at halftime. They were down 10, but it felt like they were down 30. And then you had the Garrett Wilson touchdown was just nuts. The stadium blew up after that. The one where he like kind of took it with
Oh
one of
yeah,
his hands.
that's
Yeah.
kind of
Right where I was sitting too. I was upper deck in that corner of that end zone and I was crazy. And then really after that, it was like once he caught that touchdown, it was like, yeah, we're not losing this game. Crowd went nuts. Crowd was nuts the rest of the game, the rest of that quarter. Go to overtime, they got a stop, and yeah, rest is history. But yeah, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Defense started to get some stops. Crowd was then loud again. Brees Hall had that one huge 82-yard run, which the crowd just erupted. And then, yeah, I mean, Zach Wilson kind of did his thing. Where it was like, it's crazy because the amount of times I found myself complimenting Zach Wilson on throwing the ball out of bounds was unbelievable. I'm like, throw it away, Zach. Throw it away. He throw it away. I'm like, yes. That's what we're supposed to do in that situation. Throw the ball away. I'm like, I'm sitting here cheering on a guy that's to throw the ball away. This better be our year. I can't take it anymore. I can't take more. I cannot take bad quarterback play for another year. Just can't do it.
Have you seen the Karis LeVert thing they're saying on Twitter where it's like he spins a wheel every time he gets the ball, where it's like I'm either gonna go be Michael Jordan or Anthony Bennett. I feel like that's Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him play the Chiefs and we've seen him play the Eagles and like look very good. Just very good. And then you see times where he is
very bad.
Tim Tebow in minicamp.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. There's no in between.
Not at all. That was really bad. Walking out of that stadium last night, you felt like, yeah, you won the battle, lost the war. You won, but at what cost? And then you kind of woke up the next morning and the train just hit you like, yeah, this is Aaron Rodgers news, I think, came out like 10:30 the next morning. So it was like not even, it was about 10 hours after the game ended, because the game ended at like midnight almost because it went into overtime. Came out like 10:30 and you knew, yeah, the Jets season was over. And yeah, now we sit and kind of have hope again. All right. One more over under. Then we'll get to some Austin Rivers comments. Then we'll close it out. JJ McCarthy and Minnesota Vikings. Over under 6.5. Now, we'll see what happens. McCarthy might play. Darnold might get in there. I'd assume they might split. I think Darnold might play at first, then go to McCarthy. But what are your thoughts?
If it's McCarthy, I think they're going under. Actually, a lot. I don't know. That one's tough. I mean, I think a lot of times when we talk about Minnesota, definitely myself, I forget about Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson. Like they have so many weapons around, and you throw Aaron Jones in that, and I kind of forget like they are stacked. But I've also watched J.J. McCarthy play football, and I just don't fully trust him. But at Michigan, he was in a very fortunate situation. This case, he's also in a very fortunate situation with the weapons around. So I think I'm actually probably going to go over. I don't think he can play that bad with everything he got around him. I mean, you literally got Jefferson's down there somewhere. Just throw it up. I think they go over. If he start, definitely with Darnold starting. But if for some odd reason we're seeing a lot of J.J. McCarthy, I think he goes over.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. The whole JJ McCarthy thing is just interesting. The whole like between the two. But yeah, like you said, they got weapons. I mean, they added Aaron Jones, they got Justin Jefferson, they got Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. Like he's got all the pieces in place to succeed. This was a team that won 7 games last year. Like I understand at quarterback you can, like they won 7 games with Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall and Josh Dobbs. How many games? I think Kirk got injured. What was it? What week was it? I forget. Was it like week? It was pretty deep. It was 8. So it about halfway, they like half of the season it was all backups, you know. And they were still able to manage 7 wins. So I'll give them 7 here. I think they're over. The over under is 6.5. I'll take 7. They've got a ton of weapons. It's similar to kind of like Caleb Williams in Chicago. It's going to be really hard to fail. Really hard to fail, in my opinion. But then again, he was kind of one of the most polarizing prospects as in terms of like, is he actually there is going to be no in between with JJ McCarthy. He's either going to be really good or he is going to be flat out awful. We'll see. If you're a Vikings fan, you hope it's really good. That's all you can hope for.
I think you got to give him some grace in year one, especially if he's in like not the day one starter. But then again, it's like not really, because if you're sitting behind Sam Darnold for 6-7 weeks and now you're sprung to play, you've had to have learned something in those 6 to 7 weeks on top of training camp and everything like that. So I think I lied. I think he's going to need some instant success like as soon as he steps in.
Yeah. And too, from a Justin Jefferson perspective, not that he's like a diva or a guy but he's going to be looking for a massive contract. He's going to be looking for a lot of money. The last thing he's going to want is for JJ McCarthy to go out there and have struggles. So McCarthy's got some pressure on him to feed the ball. I saw it 2 years with the last 2 seasons. I've seen it in Garrett Wilson. Receivers are kind of the only job on the football field that your pay, I don't know if I want to say livelihood, but your success is reliant on somebody else. It's really the only position.
100%.
And that's why it's such an interesting position. I think just in NFL in general, this could actually probably be a fun topic to discuss maybe in another episode. But I think that's why sometimes receivers kind of get a bad rap in terms of like the way they handle themselves, or when they're frustrated on the sidelines, they kind of sometimes get a bad rap as, oh, they're me guys, they're all about me. But you kind of understand it because their money, what they do in their NFL career is completely reliant on somebody else, unless if they're obviously not getting open or they're dropping passes. But if they're open and the guy's just not getting it to them, that's not their fault. So Justin Jefferson, yeah, you're going to, when you have a great receiver, it's great, but it's also pressure because you got to get him the ball. And Garrett Wilson, I saw with the Jets, just kind of as a comparison, He got very frustrated last 2 years with Simeon and Tim Boyle and Zach and Strevler. I mean, I would quit. I'd retire, but give him credit for at least still playing. I'd retire. I would give up, but here we are. He's still playing, so that's good. That's positive. Do you think
Oh man,
Jefferson's in Minnesota long term?
it depends on this year. I think
Yeah,
it definitely depends on this year. If he's kind of happy, I don't know if he's more of the situation with him is more of a like I just want my money and I want to win, or I just want my money. So I mean, if
yeah,
they're talking about 5 or 6 wins, but they throw a bag at him, I think he might be content. But if he gets to that point where it's just like, I mean, remember he's really not dealt with a lot of adversity when it comes
yeah,
to winning from college to now. So if he gets into a situation to where he has his bag but they're losing games, I can see him out of Minnesota. But I
yeah,
think for at least the next 2 to 3 years, he's going to be a Viking.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be. To me, it's very interesting to see kind of what Minnesota does this year, because they're also in a division that's loaded, and that's the crazy part is like they might not even be that bad, but with how good their division is, they might see some struggles. Like it's
And you
not
know
so much their
what's
roster; it's just Detroit, Green Bay, and Chicago is tough.
so like what I was about to say is they match up very well offensively, just
Oh yeah,
talent wise. It's just they're the worst defense in that division, and
yeah,
that is not a division for a bad defense.
nope,
So, I mean, yeah, that's great. You can score 42, but you're giving up 49.
yeah.
I feel like that's their situation. So it's tough for them.
And there's going to be those games too where McCarthy's off. And you might need they might only score 10, 13 points. He's having an off game like rookies do. And you're gonna need your defense to step up and they can't. So interesting. The Vikings have been one of the more interesting. I mean, they've had a lot of bad moments in their franchise, but I feel like recently it's just been they got a lot of talent on offense, and I'm glad you brought it up, but it's always been the defense that have caused them problems. I mean, the wild card game in 2022, 2 years ago now, or a year ago, they let Daniel Jones look like prime Eli out there. It's a problem. At home, too. At home. So it'll be interesting. But I do
Oh
trust Kevin
god.
O'Connell to try and get the most out of JJ McCarthy. All right. Now on to something that has kind of taken the sports world by storm. I don't know if Austin Rivers meant to do this, but here we are. Austin Rivers saying he could take 30 guys in the NBA and put them right into the NFL, or 30 guys in the NFL put them right. Now you couldn't take 30 guys in the NFL and put them in the NBA. What are your thoughts on this?
Austin Rivers is an idiot. So
I agree.
talking about this topic with people at work, and there's some different things out where it's like you got some guys that are in the NBA that could play. I mean, Jalen Suggs, for instance, was a 4-star quarterback when he was in high school with some big time Division 1 offers. So like a Jalen Suggs, I still think could do it. Maybe an Anthony Edwards can possibly do it. Like there's a few guys because they have that mentality to do it. But if 7 foot, I'm sorry, the moment 7 foot Joel Embiid gets hit in the face, he's laying on the ground, getting the stretcher out,
Yeah.
all those type of things. Can you imagine Joel Embiid running a slant into like Bobby Wagner in the NFL game? He might die on the field. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
like that. That's gonna be bad. All right, that was a bad example considering everything with DeMar Hamlin. So I'm sorry, that was terrible.
That's
All
all
right,
right. You're good.
if basically what I'm trying to say, they're not tough enough to kind of take those type of hits. I don't think that can happen. Not at all.
Yeah, I agree. It like especially just the way the NBA is these days, where it's become very soft. LeBron gets poked in the eye, and he's like, not to just not to throw the LeBron slander right off the dome there, but um, I mean, Austin Rivers of all people. Like this, like I could understand if it was like a bigger name or even if it was LeBron, but Austin Rivers, who is, I mean, this guy is 6'4", 200 pounds. He's not anything special. He's not this massive 6'7" dude that's dunking everywhere. This guy is like he would get crushed. He'd get crushed in the NFL.
Which I don't know if he's talking about just because like these NBA players have the height. Like, yeah, oh, we're 6'3", we're 6'4". Like that's great because corners now are 6'3" and 6'4". I mean, we got 6'6" quarterbacks, and just because just say from like a wide receiver standpoint, just because you are 6'4" and up doesn't mean you're necessarily getting off the line against these
Yeah.
NFL cornerbacks. You got to think about that. You're not just running in the straight line trying to catch a ball. And
Yeah.
we're NBA guys, you're not running 4.2s and 4.3 40s either. I don't know what he was thinking.
I don't either. I mean, yeah, like there was the amount of just hits these guys take in the NFL, like him, like you mentioned, just one of the hardest hitters in football, I just think, or even like the Legion of Boom, let's say, against Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers against one of the better corners in football, let's just say Sauce. Austin Rivers against Sauce, he would get cooked.
Can you
Absolutely
imagine?
cooked.
Imagine Austin Rivers taking that hit that Reggie Bush took when he was on the
Yeah.
Saints, that Saints and Eagles one. Just, I don't think he would ever leave the house again. Like
No,
they might disband the league if some of these guys took hits
they
that.
would officially go to flag football.
Yeah, there's no way they can do it. I don't know what he was thinking, but obviously, if he wanted to stir the pot, he did it well. But I don't think you can take 30 guys from the NBA and put them in the NFL. I do think you can take them from the NFL and put them in the NBA because I mean the NFL got some hoopers. I know you've
Yeah.
probably seen the offseason, clips of some guys, Patrick Mahomes and Anthony Richardson, Max Crosby. I mean, even looking at the All-Star break over the last few years, like these are NFL players that are playing in these All-Star games and just
Yeah.
completely taking over. Got to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even the celebrity game, you've seen like Miles Garrett and all that. Miles Garrett was dunking, I believe. It's like
Exactly.
Austin Rivers wouldn't be sacking the quarterback.
I mean, I
Quarterback would
think
be sacking him if that can
we've all
happen.
seen the Draymond Green at Michigan State thing, right?
Yeah.
That that is exactly how that would look for probably majority of the athletes that try to do the transition.
Yeah. It would never happen. It would just never work. Just the speed of the game, the endurance. Austin Rivers, like just again, Austin Rivers of all people. I mean, this is a guy that had a long NBA career, but come on now. I mean, this is a guy that averaged 8.5 points per game in his career, 23.8 minutes. He's talking. I mean,
I
I
did
get it.
not
He
know
fit his role as a bench player, but you know,
I mean,
his bench player in the NBA is saying, "Oh, I'm going to go to the NFL." No, no.
can little kind of off topic, on topic. Can we kind of say he probably underachieved in the NBA? I mean, you were one of the best prospects in all of high school, and you had an insane first year in college, and you come into the NBA and literally do nothing. I don't want to say his career was carried by the legacy of his dad's one NBA championship in '08, which was like 47 years ago. But
And a
I
first round
mean,
exit this year.
yeah, I mean, hasn't really done much ever since
Yeah,
then.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. Out of all the people, he has no room to talk. No room to talk. I mean, let's just face it, too. The guy was on the Timberwolves last year, and now look at 1 year gone, and they're
Was he actually still on the Timberwolves roster last year?
yeah, and now he's gone, and look, they're winning. These
That's a
people.
bad. That's a bad look.
Didn't that year, uh, didn't the year at Duke? Didn't they? Wasn't that the year they lost to Lehigh?
That was so long ago. I honestly can't even remember. But if it was, that mean that was C.J. McCollum in Lehigh.
That is true, man. college basketball. What do you think's better? This time? It's always fun to kind of look back at college basketball and see where all these guys came from, like Cardiac Kemba. You got the Nova kids with the Knicks, and now Austin
I,
Rivers.
I mean, what is the polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas? That's what the Austin Rivers was just then. But yeah, just kind of seeing some guys from college and just what they do in the NBA, kind of how they kind of carry that over. And I guess I'm saying that because I'm really I hate the Knicks. I really despise the Knicks. I think I'm just a hater of like the upper north, Philly, New York. I think I'm starting to like piece it together. I think that's what it is. But just the Nova Knicks right now are just so fun to watch.
Yeah,
Absolutely so fun to watch.
totally agree. You know what's funny is, wow. So yeah, so Seth Curry was on that team too at Duke.
He was, yes. I do remember that.
Man, don't hear him say anything. Ah, these guys, man.
Man,
These
Seth Curry
athletes,
might have had a
they're so stupid.
just I guess I kind of get the point of I can't remember who exactly said it, but it was like right now you're not even in the NBA, like you're unemployed. There,
Yeah.
why are you on here talking about what guys can and can't do and which sport they can and can't play when you're not even a professional at the moment in your own sport? That's a good
And the
point.
team you left is now making a deep run in the playoffs.
They might just win the finals,
They might
and
win
you're
the
not on that
finals and you're not
roster.
even on a team.
It's
It's
a
like
bad look.
Tiki Barber with the Giants. The year he left, they won the championship. They won the Super Bowl.
Oh man.
Stupid. Very stupid. So,
Those podcasts, some of the good and bad to happen, gives us some things to talk about, but you realize how stupid people really are.
yeah. But I guess stupid draws headlines. So he did something right, I guess. I mean,
Say he stirred the pot if that's what he
yeah,
wanted to do.
he's getting everybody to talk about it, which was probably his goal of the whole thing. I'm irrelevant. My NBA career, I've been so irrelevant. Let me find relevancy by saying something stupid, and I'm not even in
Make it
the
work.
league anymore. Like I
Hats
said,
off
just
to
to say it
Austin
again,
Rivers.
out of all the people, Austin Rivers, what? I mean, you ask 99% of NFL fans probably have no clue this guy even exists. No clue.
I can probably say anyone from born 2006 and after probably has no idea who Austin Rivers is, unless they are just like a big time sports fan and like a Timberwolves fan and that type of thing. Other than
Yeah.
that, no one knows who Austin Rivers is anymore.
Nope. Nobody. And rightfully so. But the guy did nothing in the NBA, so I wouldn't know much about him in that situation either. So,
You didn't miss much.
nope. Anyway, any closing thoughts here before we finish things off?
No, I mean, maybe we need to figure out some stupidity for next show, get some people talking.
Yeah. Austin Rivers Austin Rivers attends NFL rookie minicamp.
That I think that. All right. Well, all right. One last. When the Rams brought Kevin Hart to their mini camp or drink whatever it was,
Yeah.
somebody got to do that with Austin Rivers, and it should be the Vikings.
But Austin Rivers, JJ McCarthy loses the quarterback battle to Austin Rivers.
That now that
The NFL script. That's what Jerry Jones had on his script.
that would be something. That would really be something.
There's no coming back from that if you're JJ McCarthy.
You got to retire. Retire.
He's retire from everything.
Move out the country. Probably get a new identity. There's nothing you can do.
I wonder what the script writers have up for this year. I'm really intrigued.
Well, we will find out on, I believe, Thursday when the schedule comes out, or Wednesday,
Yeah.
whichever day it is.
We'll break down the schedule, figure out what the script writers want, what they got in store. And yeah, any closing thoughts?
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. We will see you all back here next week. As always, make sure to please like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.